From mighty mutants letting their excitement get the better of them beforehand, to committed thespians taking their art a little too seriously, each of the following stars thought they knew exactly what they signed up for upon landing the role, but soon realized that they were either completely out of their depth, or seriously ill-equipped for the important job at hand. I'm Gareth from WhatCulture.com, and here are 9 actors who prepared for movie roles in the worst possible way. Number 9. James McAvoy shaves his head. X-Men First Class. James McAvoy was understandably over the moon when he first got wind of the fact he would be playing a young Charles Xavier in Matthew Vaughn's X-Men First Class. Lining up alongside the likes of Michael Fassbender and Jennifer Lawrence, the star would take his place as one of the core members of the prequel era of X-Men, as the films explored the early beginnings of the relationships forged between Professor X, Magneto, Raven/Mystique, and many more. However, his overexuberance upon signing on the dotted line ultimately led to him deciding to part ways with his luscious locks before shooting, in an attempt to give himself that signature Xavier Dome look. McAvoy quickly found out during his first day of shooting on the film, however, a month on from shaving his head, that this was definitely not the look they were going for. Instead, Vaughn and co. wanted Xavier to be sporting a mane for this particular flick, so the actor was required to wear hair extensions throughout the shoot. He'd finally get the chance to go full Xavier in X-Men Apocalypse though, keeping the lack of hairstyle for Dark Phoenix too. Number 8. Henry Fonda grows a mustache and hides his blue eyes. Once Upon a Time in the West. Up until he appeared in Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West, Henry Fonda was largely known for his film work as the typical good guy. So in an attempt to shed the skin of his heroic image, when tasked with playing the villainous Frank in the Leone picture, Fonda decided to block out his famous clear blue eyes with brown contact lenses, and covered much of his mug with a mysterious mustache. However, the moment Fonda turned up to set with these facial accessories, Leone ordered the legendary thespian to remove all of these additions. The reason behind this decision was simply down to the fact that Leone wanted audiences to instantly recognize the star and his piercing blue eyes during his now iconic introduction. Had the camera instead panned up to a brown contact lensed mustache sporting Fonda instead, the reveal likely wouldn't have been anywhere near as impactful or shocking. Simply put, it appears the actor and director weren't on the same wavelength coming into the now adored Western. But Leone's master plan more than paid off, as the film went on to be considered an all-time classic. Number 7. Robert Pattinson underdelivers in rehearsals and gets drunk on set. The Lighthouse. While Robert Pattinson was largely praised for his highly committed performance during 2019's The Lighthouse, it's fair to say that he perhaps didn't do himself a ton of favors when it came to preparing himself for the role. First of all, when it came time to run through the scenes with director Robert Eggers and co-star Willem Dafoe beforehand, the actor found himself regularly pissing off Eggers with his monotone readings and general lack of effort. Simply put, Pattinson isn't sure how to perform a scene until he is genuinely in the situation on set. Then, when given the chance to deliver the goods on the day of, the actor likely went a little too far in the eyes of one rather frustrated Dafoe. For the scenes showcasing Pattinson's character being very much under the influence, let's say, the actor legitimately got drunk on set, throwing up and wetting himself for good measure. This all led to a particularly worrisome moment when Pattinson tried to make himself hurl on his co-star mid-scene, as you do, with Eggers ordering the star to pull himself together as Dafoe looked ready to call it a day. And you can't exactly blame him. Number 6. Christian Bale does The Machinist first. Batman Begins. If you're watching this, you're likely already aware of the insane physical transformation Christian Bale committed to when bringing Trevor Resnick to life in The Machinist. The actor would then go on to star in Batman Begins soon after, packing on 100 pounds of weight and muscle to play the Dark Knight, only to be told by director Christopher Nolan that he looked a little too big. Oh, cheers, Chris. Bale then amazingly dropped another 20 pounds before shooting, because he's Batman. What you may not know, however, is that the actor likely didn't give himself the best of chances to land the role upon meeting Nolan for the first time. Bale, who was on the verge of shooting the aforementioned Machinist and sporting a ridiculously skinny figure, looked nothing like the eventual hulking vigilante Nolan was looking for at that moment in time. But ever the visionary, the masterful director knew that Bale would be his man in the end, as evidenced by his relentless dedication to piling back on the pounds over the 6 months between finishing shooting Machinist and starting on the first Nolan Bat flick. What a guy. Number 5, Marlon Brando didn't give a damn. Apocalypse Now. By the time Apocalypse Now was in production, Marlon Brando was a very, let's say, different actor to the one who strutted onto the scene in the likes of A Streetcar Named Desire and On the Waterfront. Instead of being met with a committed thespian focused on delivering the sort of performance Francis Ford Coppola had in mind for the lean and hungry Colonel Kurtz that was written in the script, the director had to deal with a Brando who'd ballooned in weight to the point where his 300-pound frame couldn't fit into any of the Green Beret outfits on set. On top of this, the actor had also completely overlooked the script altogether before arriving, meaning that filming had to be halted for a week whilst Coppola explained his character to him and got Brando back up to speed. Sure, his performance was still ultimately lauded for being one of the finest ever committed to film because it was still bloody Marlon Brando, but there's no questioning that the actor made life incredibly hard for those around him by doing next to no preparation work beforehand. Number 4, Jim Carrey realizes he can't put his body through hell. The Three Stooges. For a time, Jim Carrey seemed to be all in when it came to the idea of playing Curly Howard in the Farrelly Brothers' The Three Stooges flick. The actor even began to experiment with his body in an attempt to get into the physicality of the heavy-set comedy star beforehand. Yeah, that's actually where the trouble started. Whilst preparing himself for the monstrous task of packing on around 80 pounds to play Howard, Carey gained 30 to 40 pounds before the shoot had even begun. Quickly realizing that piling on and losing a ridiculous amount of weight was a young man's game though, he decided to back out of the project out of fear his body would be irreparably damaged by such a transformation. Carey clearly felt the role wasn't worth putting his body through hell for, and judging from the all-round forgettable nature of the eventual film in question, it looks as though the iconic comedy performer dodged a serious bullet by testing the weight-gaining waters in advance. Number 3, Martin Lawrence nearly kills himself getting into shape. Big Mama's House. You usually hear about various actors pushing their bodies to crazy extremes in an attempt to accurately portray everything from real-life freak athletes to live-action comic book heroes on the big screen. What you don't tend to stumble upon every day is the news of a thespian nearly killing themselves to get into shape to play the leading role in a comedy flick, a part that required them to wear an 80-pound fat suit no less. But that's precisely what went down when Martin Lawrence decided in 1999 that he needed to be in absolute tip-top condition coming into the shooting of Big Mama's House. Whilst training for the performance that would require him to wear the aforementioned prosthetics, Lawrence chose to work out while wearing a big plastic bag in 100-degree weather. In the end though, Lawrence would suddenly collapse due to the disastrous combination, falling into a coma due to severe heat-related exhaustion. He'd thankfully make a full recovery, but nearly killing yourself to get in shape for a part is likely not the best way to get started on a project. Number 2, Ewan McGregor doesn't know how to do a legit French accent. Beauty and the Beast. There's no disputing the fact that Ewan McGregor is one of the finest thespians of his generation, convincingly breathing life into everything from Jedi Far Far Away to drug-addicted youngsters over the course of his storied career. However, he may have got a little bit carried away with himself coming into the recording of his part of Lumiere in the live-action Beauty and the Beast remake that would eventually hit screens in 2017. Being married to a French woman for 20 years, McGregor initially believed he had a strong enough grasp on the accent to nail it first time. But he soon found out that those in charge wanted him to drop the typically French way of pronouncing le, which is R to people that aren't idiots like myself. Or as we English would pronounce it, R, resulting in him sounding largely Mexican during his first set of recordings. Not happy with the way his early voice of Lumiere came out, McGregor would work with a vocal coach to iron out the accent and produce what director Bill Condon told Total Film was a flawless, beautiful French accent. He got there in the end at least. I am so sorry for that accent. Number 1, Ryan Gosling gets too fat. The Lovely Bones. There's getting your preparation wrong to the point where you're forced to re-record lines or push a couple of scenes back a few months. And then there's getting your wires so badly crossed that you find yourself being completely removed from a project before it even begins shooting. Yeesh. In the lead up to starring in Peter Jackson's The Lovely Bones, Ryan Gosling was convinced that he needed to pack on some weight and grow a beard to play the role of Jack Salmon, a father who becomes wrapped up in his daughter's murder case. Jackson, on the other hand, did not share Gosling's vision. This miscommunication likely came about due to the pair apparently not talking an awful lot during the pre-production process. But Gosling ultimately held his hands up and admitted he showed up on set and had gotten it wrong. Soon after Jackson saw the seriously overweight leading man, Gosling remembered being fat and unemployed. It's not as though it had a lasting impact on the actor's career, however, with the star eventually rediscovering his abs and mojo in the likes of Crazy Stupid Love and Drive. But he'll likely never forget this Haagen-Dazs laced lesson.